Hi, welcome back. Another live stream for today. Now this is my normal live stream. I would do at a normal time, and it was certainly supposed to be a questions and answers on the Curse of Strahd. And as it happens, I had actually prepared some material for you that I was going to cover. But I have an addition to my house. So while I'm doing my sound check and so forth, I will put the start time for this video down in the description as I always do, but there may not be prepared material for today. I did plan to do so. I do have it in front of me, but I now have a 2-year-old who is living in my house. Okay, so as a result, 2-year-olds struggle to sleep sometimes, so therefore I may not be able to present that information. But I am still here to answer as many questions as I possibly can. So I'll get rid of the earplugs and we will have a discussion. Because that's probably going to be the easiest way to deal with all of this rather than for me to try to do anything else. So you're going to get my face instead of what I would normally do, which is slides and my notes. And I do apologize for those of you who were expecting something more. What I will do is I will certainly present this information in a video that I have got here today, and I'll do it under a tree where it's nice and quiet and away from the house, and Amelia's not trying to get to sleep or anything like that. So let's just say hi to the people who are here. But we'll do my normal introduction. Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today we're going to be talking about Dungeons and Dragons, but specifically this is a Dungeon Master questions and answers on the Curse of Strahd. That doesn't stop you from talking about other topics. And I also, at some point, I want to talk about the Dungeon Master Roundtable. It's a project that me and Wally are putting together, and I thought I would at least present the idea to you guys at some point today. That might be soon, that might be later. I also want to talk about the fact that I have a pile of books here beside me that I just don't have time to read through completely. That I would like to review, and people have asked me to give my impression or my opinion on these books. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as well at some point. But first, we're here for the Curse of Strahd. So let's say hi to everybody, and then we will go into sort of a bit of detail. I'm going to put down hashtag question. Not that I think it's going to mean very much, because there's not that many people here today. Can I reach it? I can't even see the keyboard. Can I pull the keyboard out? No, I can't even pull the keyboard out. I'm not even going to bother doing that. It's not going to work anyway. Big Kid is here. Hello, Big Kid. How's it going? So you're just saying you never finished the Curse of Strahd, ran the Death House, Vistani. Yeah, no. Now, gypsies in Vistani. Well, I think this is an issue that I've seen come up, and like every property, every franchise has had to deal with, is the content they're making socially acceptable? Is it PC, politically correct? I've never been a politically correct kind of person because I'm not really about talk, okay? I've worked with people with intellectual disabilities. I've worked with a wide range of people from different cultures, men, women, and in many cases a lot of the people I've been working with have been women rather than men, because of the field that I work in. I work with people with brain injuries. So let's talk just briefly about the Vistani. And I know that a lot of people say, well, we don't like the Vistani and how they are portrayed in the Curse of Strahd. And that's fine, so change it. If you don't like the way that the Vistani are portrayed in the Curse of Strahd, that's fine. Does that mean you need to change that because somebody else has said that it's not politically correct or it's culturally insensitive? I think the other thing to understand about the Vistani is the Vistani aren't just gypsies. They are a collection of gypsies who have specifically, working for the devil. And the devil in this case is Strahd. They're not normal gypsies. They're an offshoot of the gypsy culture, if there is such a thing as a gypsy culture. Okay, because so I think that's something you need to understand when you're thinking about gypsies. So you could play the gypsies as they are written in the Curse of Strahd, or you could change them. I don't have a problem with that. I don't know why everybody else needs to have a problem with an issue like that myself. So I just wanted to point that out because it's one of those things that keeps cropping up. I get, is it the SJW, Social Justice Warrior stuff, and is it Woke, WOKE? I'm in New Zealand. I don't understand what all this is about, frankly. I just don't get it. If people were saying, we want equal rights for this person or that poor person, that's fine. And we bring it into Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons is a fantasy world. You make it as it is. And if people don't like it, then they don't play in it. It's as simple as that. Okay, let's go back. Jasper Pearls is here. How's it going, Jasper Pearls? Hello, Richard. I hope people have some questions for me. Maybe I should type in so that I start getting some questions. Otherwise, I'll be chatting away, talking the whole time, and nobody will type any specific questions for me. Question, please. So let's do that. Wow, there we go. I'll just move that myself back into position. And if there's a way of pinning this thing, I will. I'm supposed to pin it. Drink some water. Oh, there we go. It's pinned. Okay. All right. So, what has Richard got to say here? So you're going to be running. So Richard, interesting. So if you're running the Curse of Strahd very soon, I would imagine you may have been. I mean, I have like a video series of advice on the Curse of Strahd. Lunch Break Hero has a pretty extensive library of videos talking about, how to change the Curse of Strahd, either to make more sense or to make it a bit more fun. So those are good resources. I don't know have I done a video on places you can go to get good resources for the Curse of Strahd. Sly Flourish has always got some very good advice. There's so many really good guides online. It's really down to, is it worth your time to be chasing all these guides, or is there a specific question you need answered? That's the thing I've always found, is when you have a specific question about the Curse of Strahd, you can't find it because typing that question into Google won't get you the results you want. So hence, it's really good to actually specify a question, because there's always a chance I'll write it down and may turn it into a video, or may get somebody else to try and make the video about that. Anyway, all right, so moving on. Toasty, how's it going, Toasty? I just started 3 weeks ago. My players are about to get to the T-Sap pool. All right. Okay, after the village. Do you know the original pool was... I put an aboleth in there, mate. I put an aboleth in that pool. Not in the Curse of Strahd, okay? When I was running Ravenloft, the original adventure, I put an aboleth in there. And God blimey, did it mess up the characters big time. It was very funny. And I think the individuals involved, many of them found it highly amusing. Terrifying, but highly amusing. Anyway. Hello, Fender. How's it going? So, we've got Ryan's here. You're digging the hat. I'm glad you're digging the hats. That's good news. Who else? We've got here Purple Genie. I mean, does a name like Purple Genie get any better than that? Frankly, I think Purple Genie is the perfect name for anybody to have. Purple Genie. Right now, I just think you should put a Purple Genie into your adventure. I can just imagine a Purple Genie. We were talking about Robin Williams here, aren't we? That's where it's coming from. Anyway, there's some questions coming through, so let's have a look what they are. Collector Carving. Happy Easter, yes. It is Good Friday for me here in New Zealand, for those of you who are wondering. You're watching from America. Yes, well, most of my audience is American. Surprisingly, it's not... the number of Kiwis or New Zealanders watching my stuff is almost non-existent. Anyway, accurate by Dana. I'm gonna lose that. By Dane Barros. Spain. You're from Spain. Welcome from Spain. Okay. How do you like to start the adventure? Okay, so I've started this adventure in two different ways. So when I was running the Ravenloft adventure, this is the original one, it just includes the castle. So it really, all I did is have them encounter the mist and the gates to Barovia. Okay, once they pass through the mist and the gates, they can't return. And that's sort of just how it works. And the idea behind this is that trying to pass through the mist is pretty much going to cause death. That's how you do it with the original Ravenloft. Now, Curse of Strahd is an expansion, a very good expansion on the original adventure because it pretty much has everything there plus more. So I've done it that way. I've used, with the Curse of Strahd, there's probably 4 different hooks, of which I think 3 are pretty good. I like the werewolf hook, where the players are trying to track down werewolves. I like the mist one. You can include both of them, of course. And then you've got one where they get a message from somebody who shows up at an inn or a tavern. And then there's another one that they encounter some ruffians. They are approached by a lady, a noble lady, and they are asked to try to get the Vistani, these individuals who are camped outside of town, to leave. That's the one I probably like the least. I think the one in the messenger is all right, but the werewolf one is the one I think is probably the strongest. My players liked that the most. That's the one I would go with. I've already done a video on Curse of Strahd hooks where I talk about that particular topic. So that's the one I would go for myself. Okay, so that's how I like to start the adventure. And yes, I do use when I was running the Ravenloft adventures, just the castle. So I just used the castle, of course. But after that, and the Barovia township, because that's what you get. But yes, I did use the Death House when I was running the Curse of Strahd, rather than just the Ravenloft adventure. Okay, right. So you've got a question here. Acute's got a question. Okay. So here's the question. Does the small length of Barovia affect the dynamic of the campaign in some way? No, not really. It's really the sandbox you have been presented with. So domains of dread have their limits and boundaries, and to cross over them usually requires you to do something. In this case, the only way to leave Barovia is for Strahd to give you a potion that would allow you to go outside of the borders of Barovia, which usually means you have to do a deal with Strahd, which is not a good thing. To leave again, you may be granted the ability to move back and forth across the boundary by Strahd. The Vistani have that ability, so it's not like it couldn't be granted to somebody else, but they have to agree to do something. And if they don't agree to doing that, there's a problem for them, okay? Because Strahd can always send somebody through the mist after them to deal with them in some horrible way. And trust me, I'm sure it's happened more than once. The other thing is you either have to defeat Strahd, and by defeating Strahd, you end the reign and Barovia loses the mist. Therefore, everybody can cross over that boundary. The only problem is, if you are an individual with a soul, you can pass over the boundary even though the mist has disappeared. But if you leave the boundaries of Barovia and you're a shell, so in other words, a creature constructed by the mind of Strahd, these are what shells are, that have no soul, they just cease to exist. And like 90% of the population of Barovia are shells. It's a lot of them. I think it's at least about 90%. So, yeah. Otherwise, you would have a hard time as a dungeon master if the boundary of Barovia was much larger. Okay, collector carving. You have a question. Time tracking in and out of combat at the same time. In combat, it's 6 seconds. Out of the combat is 1 minute per. No. So first off, if we're dealing with tracking time in combat, 6 seconds is a round, okay? 1 minute is not a turn. 6 seconds is a round, that's it. So 1 minute would represent 10 rounds, and you're probably never going to play through more than between 1 and 4 rounds of combat before it ends. Unless, of course, you have fleshed out all the monsters and given them bucket loads of hit points, and you're really trying to string the combat out for a long time. Then you will have much longer combats. But that's the concept behind timing and combat, okay? Doesn't matter whether you're running it in the Curse of Strahd or any other adventure. Very simple. What's the best way to deal with it when you are happening at the same time? Okay, so you're talking about including combat and something else outside of combat at the same time. Well, you use the same framework. You use the framework of the combat round, okay? The easiest way to go is you count everything off in 6 seconds until the combat's finished, okay? The easiest way to deal with all things is when there's a combat, you use the timing that combat allows. And then that means that once you're out of combat, then you go back to not measuring time in 6 second increments, okay? That's much easier to do. The only reason that combat stipulates 6 seconds is simply to give you some idea of sort of what would be happening at that time. Now remember, don't count up 6 seconds for every character and monster. It doesn't work that way. Anyway, hopefully that answered your question with regard to that. You will let me know, collector carving, if it's not the answer you were looking for, and I will do my best to fix up that. Okay, right, next question. And at some point we've got to talk about this Dungeon Master Round Table and some of these books I haven't reviewed, but we'll get there, sure. Alright, so next, Big Kid question. My family is vaccinated, and so we are finally going to restart our first campaign. My question is, in restarting, should I put my players on easy mode for the first session, or any tips? Well, okay, so Big Kid, I think it's your family, okay? So have you already figured out if you've already played through part of it? Are you starting the Curse of Strahd? Are you actually getting them to play through the Curse of Strahd? Because if it's the first time they've played, because you give me the impression that you're restarting the Curse of Strahd campaign and you're going on to easy mode. If you were already playing through the Curse of Strahd and you had already set up how things were going to work, just stick with that, okay? I've given a bunch of videos on how to deal with character death in the Curse of Strahd, because it tends to happen a lot. There are many different ways of doing it, okay? And I know some people use a rolling cast, some which I don't particularly like. There are the dark gifts. There are consequences and complications to character death, and then of course resurrection becomes even more complicated. There are individuals within the Curse of Strahd who can bring creatures or characters back to life. The only problem is that they are troublesome. There's a whole bunch of resurrection options and spells and so forth that you can access in the Amber Temple. The Abbot, you will find the Abbot's capable of doing that. Even Strahd can bring people back to life if he really wanted to, I would believe. So there are a couple of ways of doing that, and that's just the ones that are there. So then that means you can create your own if you need something to work in that way. Now there is a section in the book on character death and how you would deal with that. Since we're talking about easy mode, I'm assuming we're talking about character death, right? So there is a section in the adventure that actually talks about character death and what happens when somebody is resurrected, and it's around the magic section. You know, the way magic works in the world changes as a result of the fact that you're in a place that's very gothic, and it's to give that more flavour and so forth. Now, where is that section? So that is it past the mists? Cosmic spell modifications, there is that. Resurrection Madness, it's on page 24, page 24, sorry. So under the section that says Resurrection Madness, that means that resurrection is an option in the Curse of Strahd, but it has pretty significant consequences. In Barovia, the souls of the dead are trapped, okay? As if the trapped as the souls of the living. Okay, so basically you can't get out because of the mists. Even if you die, you're stuck in the mist. So that means there is a consequence, and you're supposed to use the indefinite madness table in chapter 8 of the Dungeon Master Guide. You can use that, or you can ignore that. I haven't really talked about madness in the Curse of Strahd. The problem with the madness table is it really requires your players to be on board to role play the character in that way, because it is very easy for a player to look at that and say, yeah, unless my dungeon master points it out, I'll just ignore that. So just something to bear in mind, but there is a section on that specifically. But there are many options that you can use that are very complicated and rather interesting, probably more frightening than a character dying, actually. And I can think of a few. But I've done a video on character death options, and that's a good video to go and check out. And probably the worst one that my players have ever had to contend with is somebody came back as a pile of poo. And they were like, how does this work? I'm not even going to go into that, okay? It's potty humour, and I love potty humour, and we shouldn't subject you to that one anyway. That's the time when you know the Dungeon Master is a real SHIT. Moving on. What do you got here, Fendar? Right. Hey, JP. Jean Paul is here. Jean Paul is one of my players. He has... We've been playing together for a while. So what have you got here to say, mate? I have never played Curse of Strahd with Fred. No, you haven't. It's probably a good thing too. Too afraid that he will get revenge on me. Well, I don't know that you would be able to deal with that particular adventure, JP, because I know how you feel about character death. And you've never responded well. So that's probably not going to be the adventure you want to play in. And there is a lot of it. So, yeah, I do have... There's a couple of people who have played in my adventures through the Curse of Strahd, and they know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway. No, I'm not streaming on Twitch. Basically, I don't use Discord because it's a platform that I found too many problems with. I do have a Twitch channel, and I used to put my games up on Twitch. The only problem is that I just don't have the facilities to set everything up. My players are not really interested in being put on screen, and so they usually resort to hamming things up too much. They will just swear and curse the whole time. They will do the most appalling things and be laughing in a desperate attempt to get me banned off that platform. So I don't put any of that sort of stuff on Twitch anymore because I just don't think it's going to work. Will I use the Twitch channel at some point? I don't know. I'm still not. It's there. It's an option if I want to. But I think right now most of the people are watching me on YouTube, so that's where we sort of stick. And I can at least keep things on YouTube even if I unlist them or cut them down, whereas it's a bit difficult if you're on Twitch. Okay. So, I think I've answered that question, Big Kid. I certainly hope I have, anyway. All right, Toasty, you have a question. Good, hopefully it's a good question. A good question requires me to really think. That's the first glass down. Man, that didn't take long. It's very hot in here. It's a very warm day. And okay, so question from Toasty. How do I make Strahd very likeable at first while also hinting his vile nature? Okay, so here's what I did. Strahd's vile nature was third party or second party information that my players' characters would receive. So they never actually saw Strahd do anything particularly horrible to begin with. All they heard was the stories about what Strahd was like from those who were willing to say anything. And every time they had an interaction with Strahd, even though they knew, because they were they're using meta knowledge, they knew Strahd was a bad guy. You can't hide this from your players, and the players will be expecting something. So I used to always have Strahd be quite reasonable. He invited them to the castle for dinner, and not to be dinner, for dinner. Okay. He spoke to them. He tried to help them. He would give them a ride from one place to another. He would give them advice. It wouldn't necessarily be very good advice. It would be advice that would serve him rather than them. And he would also always present himself as a noble or lord that the commoners unfairly treated poorly or thought poorly of. And there's lots of ways you can do that. It's very, very easy. And I've given you a couple of ways of doing that. And I would very much like to do the content that I had intended to today. It's sitting here. But unless little Amelia gets quiet, that's probably not going to happen. So we'll see. Okay, that's that question. Purple Jenny. All right, here we go. How do you use the sun sword? Well, you pick up the sun sword and you swing the sun sword. I mean, it's not that difficult. The sun sword is just a magic weapon. The information in the book, and sorry, I'm just going to go there to the section on the sun sword, because it's all spelled out for you. It shouldn't be difficult for you to figure out. Right, sun sword is on page 223. Okay. So it gives you an indication. It's attunement, so they must attune. They must spend a short rest with it. And then it just basically explains how it works. Its features are very, very simple. It's sentient. In other words, it has its own will. And it is treated as being a magical weapon. So, down the bottom here, there's a section, and probably the most useful to you, okay? The Sun Sword. Special purpose is to destroy Strahd. Not so much because it wants to free the land of Barovia from evil, but because it wants revenge for the loss of its crystal blade. The weapon secretly fears its own destruction. Okay, so that's its motivation. The Sun Sword is a sentient, chaotic, good weapon with an intelligence of 11, wisdom of 17, which means it's pretty smart, and a charisma of 16. It has hearing and normal vision out to a range of 60 feet. The weapon communicates by transmitting emotions to the creature carrying or wielding it. So in other words, the weapon itself is able to actually forewarn a player character. So if you were to say making perception checks, that means given the environment, based on the environment, you may find the sword is capable of hearing something or seeing something before the player's character can, and communicating that to them. Okay? So it means it's going to get through all of your damage resistance and damage immunities if that's how the monster has been written up in the stat block. Does that sort of answer your question with regard to, how do you use the Sun Sword? The Sun Sword's just a magic weapon, okay? And that's how it works. It's got a couple of features. Okay, what else have we got here? Health and safety hobo. I tried the werewolf hook, and my players were fixated on finding the werewolves every session. Okay, so that's a good point. So were my players. Every session, they were constantly trying to track down those werewolves. So, my advice to you is, let them search. because they will have to search almost the entire land of Barovia to find the werewolf den and the children that have been stolen, and this pack of werewolves. Okay, and that's a good thing. You want them to be doing and asking those questions. So don't get frustrated because they're asking about the werewolves every session. One of the things that will always come up when they're travelling at night or sleeping outside in the wilderness, should they do that, or even staying somewhere where it isn't the wilderness, is the sound of a wolf howl. And that will keep them moving, okay? Searching and trying to find out, is that wolf howl a wolf, or is it the werewolves they're trying to track down? So don't feel bad about that happening, because that happened to me, and it's all right. It's not the end of the world. Okay, I'm going to have to move a lot faster because I can see the questions are coming through very quickly. So I'll get my butt into gear. Josh Davis, question: what are some of your favourite PC endings, epilogue that you've seen or experienced as either a DM or player? Happy, sad endings, or both are welcome. Okay, so around Ravenloft, they defeated Strahd, and they were leaving, but they hadn't realised that the front entrance of Ravenloft Castle has these statues that, if you try to leave, will attack you. And on top of that, the Barovian witches, they never actually defeated the Barovian witches. I had the witches waiting outside for them, and so when they came out, the witches attacked them. And then at the same time, some of them tried to rush back into the castle and got attacked by the statues because they re-entered the castle. So as a result, they got just hammered from both sides, and the whole party got wiped out pretty effectively. It's not a great ending to any kind of campaign, but at that point I wasn't really concerned about, fudging dice and so forth. Anyway, then we ran through the Curse of Strahd, and there are two endings to the Curse of Strahd that I experienced. The first one is they defeated Strahd, the land is clear of the mists, they leave finally, and they take some individuals with them. Now, Van Richten was happy to leave Barovia. Esmeralda, I had Esmeralda, because I had to bring Esmeralda back to life because she had been killed. Esmeralda continued to hunt monsters in the land of Barovia and the domains outside of the Forgotten Realms, or whatever world you're placing it in, okay? So that's what they did. So their ending was a happy ending. The mistake I feel I made was telling them that Strahd returned to the world of Barovia 3 months later. And that is probably something you do not want to do when they are successful, and your players should eventually be successful as long as they don't give up, because they will become more powerful than Strahd. It's just a matter of time. Strahd's days are numbered, in my opinion. Now, one of those characters decided to stay, and he wanted to be the Lord of Ravenloft Castle. And so, after causing quite a lot of damage to their castle, Strahd returned home to find him squatting in his home. And that's where I ended that particular story. The player who was playing that character was always believed that he had got the better of Strahd. But that's not really the case. He just thinks that, okay? So the trick is, once you get to an ending and the players are happy with the outcome, which, provided they don't give up, will probably happen, don't tell them that everything they've done is undone because Strahd is always going to be returned, because the Dark Lords will always bring him back to life. They will get the idea behind it, but they don't find it satisfying. So don't tell them anything like that. Okay. Right, so I've given you happy, sad endings, and I've told you don't give it away if you give the happy ending. Right, so, accurate question. Thanks for the answering. No, it's all right. I always am speechless when some player asks NPCs about the way they get food, water, and about the daily life in general. How do people of Barovia survive? Well, they still farm, they still make food, they still have cattle and livestock. Uh, so it's just a small. I mean, you've got to understand it is possible for a small part of land to do all the work necessary to support the people living in that location. And Barovia is big enough to be able to do that. You don't need that much land to do that. So they survive, they go about their business. It's just not a particularly nice life, and it's probably a very short life. Anyway, moving on. Nick, hi Nick, how's it going? Question. You've mentioned in the past, yes, that there are worse endings than death that can happen to your players' characters. Do you find players hating playing characters in a shell, ghost, or ghost state? Okay, so here's the thing. I had one player who was a dungeon master who had run the Curse of Strahd, and he deliberately went out of his way to try to accrue as many dark gifts as he possibly could. And I said, no, you can't get rid of the dark gift if you die. If you die again, you get another dark gift, and so when you come back, you got. And so he had like 6 or 8 of these things, and his character was becoming more and more unusable, to the point where he's like, there's got to be maybe there needs to be a way I deal with this. So I allowed them to use remove curse. If they had a cleric that could remove curse, then they could remove those curses. So yes, I had a player who realised that too many dark gifts one or two might not be too bad. There's nothing worse than losing your eyes if you get a dark gift and you come back to life, and then you can only see 60 feet because you've got blind sight, but you're a ranged character. There's nothing worse than having that. That's a real pain in the butt. Okay, I can assure you they won't like that. I had characters who found themselves transported their souls into the body of somebody else because the body was completely destroyed. They wound up going from being a man to a small boy or a washerwoman or something like that. So those things can happen, and some players love it and some players don't like it. Okay, I know the player who wound up as a big pile of moving poo thought it was ridiculous, and there was a lot of laughter, and certainly they wanted to get rid of that problem as quickly as possible. Another player who wound up as a revenant, he was trying to go with that early on, and I did not drop that straight away. I had a player who wound up as a werewolf. He got bitten, and he liked the idea, but the rest of the party didn't, because he just caused so much trouble. And when he turned on the party, well, that just cooked things pretty badly. So I can assure you, that some players will hate the character. Okay, becoming a ghost. So I've had a character who was a ghost, and there's lots of things that ghosts do that are really, really cool. The only problem with being a ghost is you're insubstantial. So they could never pick anything up. They always had to make a check to see if they could hold anything. But they never could stow anything into a pack because their ghostly form didn't work that way. So that everything had to be carried by somebody else as the ghost travelled with them. So, and then there's nothing worse than trying to turn the undead, and one of your the characters is a zombie or an undead character, and they get turned as well. So yes, some people will love it, some people will hate it. The best way to deal with that, when you do something that is much worse than their character dying, and then being able to bring in a new character, is to give them a way of working out of that problem, a way of getting rid of that complication, a way of no longer being a ghost or a zombie or a big pile of poo or a werewolf or something like that. If there is a solution to it, they will work towards it. And that's story development, and you want that. That's always good. Okay. Okay, Big Kid, you've got here, you've already started, so resuming. Just do what you were doing before, Big Kid. I wouldn't change anything. just stick with what worked the first time round. Okay, JP, what do you got here? Curse of Strahd is a great campaign setting. The manual has comprehensive information for the Dungeon Master, but you need to read through the material to get a good handle on it. So the Curse of Strahd is really dense, okay? My message to anybody who is running the Curse of Strahd is make it your own. Seriously, there is a lot of material here, and there's a lot of people who are very precious about how the Curse of Strahd should be run. My suggestion to you is run it the way you and your players want to run it. And doesn't matter what I say or Lunch Break Hero or anybody on the internet says, just do it your way, okay? The Curse of Strahd can be played many different ways. As the cards, the Taroka deck is a good example of something that allows you to change the way the game works. The adventure is intended to be run different ways. So streamline it, homebrew it, change it, okay? It's all good. All right. Yeah, okay, so JP makes a good point. So Curse of Strahd is great for players as long as you don't have too sensitive, if you're not too sensitive about character death. Absolutely. If you've got players who really struggle with character death, they're not going to enjoy this at all. They may be much more interested in a Dungeons & Dragons campaign that's more vanilla fantasy. And I've said this many times, not all players will enjoy the Curse of Strahd. And just because a player doesn't like the Curse of Strahd doesn't make them a wuss or a wimp or a crappy player or anything like that. It's just their preference, okay? And I still think that needs to be respected, which is why I always say when you run the Curse of Strahd, have a session 0 and make sure everybody understands what they're getting into. Talk about all those aspects of the adventure. I did it, and it works really well to do that. Seriously, you can't go past that one. Yes, the campaign can be very unforgiving if the characters have made bad choices. But here's the thing. Even if players make good choices, the adventure is still unforgiving, okay? Even if the players do the smartest thing, make the good choices, they're going to run into things that are just well beyond them and they can't deal with. And that's running from level 1 right through to the end of the adventure. I can assure you there was still character death happening right up to just before they defeated Strahd. Characters perished in the Amber Temple, okay? Characters perished going over that bridge, and you know which bridge I'm talking about, okay? All right. There are places in this adventure that just continue to be dangerous. So, yes. Toslinka Pass, I believe it is. That's where the bridge is. And the rock. It's a bad situation. All out for everybody. Okay. Jasper has a question. I thought of a great plot twist for Strahd. What if when he prayed to the dark powers, they split his good and bad side? Okay. The good Strahd was imprisoned in the Amber Temple. Your thoughts? That's a very different way of thinking about it. So to give you an idea, I think the intention of the adventure is that normally with a vampire, the original soul that existed in the body before it became a vampire, the original soul is gone, and now there is a totally different entity, an evil entity, that exists within the vampire body. Okay, it's not the original individual. All the difference is that they know everything that previous person used to know, and they use it against their loved ones, their family, and their friends. Okay, and so that's one aspect to it. Now, but with the Curse of Strahd and Strahd himself, the Dark Lords have actually he's been transformed into a vampire, but his soul is so dark and evil, it has been also it hasn't gone off anywhere. It's been trapped inside that body of the vampire. But you could decide that Strahd, the vampire, is actually some evil entity, and that Strahd's actual soul exists somewhere else, somewhere trapped in a vessel in the Amber Temple. Do I think it's a bad idea? It's not my game, mate. You make those choices. You decide. Those are sort of my thoughts that sort of percolated when you started talking about that. Anyway. Right, moving on. Health and safety hobo. Question. I've been on a hiatus from my Strahd campaign and was thinking of getting my players back as separate characters, while the same timeline could I start them out in Kresk? Yeah, you could start them out in Kresk. Why not? So, where do I want to go here? I want to go to the... one of the things about this book... there we go. Here we go. S. Yeah. So I know that Jacob over at XP to level 3 has suggested that you could start your campaign over at Kresk. And yes, you could. It doesn't have to start in Barovia. And maybe that would make more sense for you. So if you want to do that, then give it a go. There's no way of saying that you can't do it that way. But, you know, you can just run your campaign that you put on hiatus and just continue from where you were. You don't have to run separate characters. I mean, if you really want to be able to run the original campaign in person, I understand. If that's your rationale behind it, then so be it. Do it that way. But there's really nothing stopping you from continuing that adventure and campaign with the Curse of Strahd that was on hiatus, take it off hiatus, and play over a video chat platform. Just play Theatre of the Mind, you know? And if you really want to use a battle map, just stick it in front of you on the desk and turn the camera down to look at your desk. I mean, that's what I do. And then when I'm finished doing the battle map, I just turn it back up to face me. And with Zoom, because I use Zoom, I can spotlight my camera so it's the biggest screen on the video chat platform. Piece of cake. I know I need to do a video showing people how to do this. But seriously, you do not have to use a complicated virtual table that takes you a whole lot of time to set up. You can just go back to your old school battle map and miniatures and just turn the camera down and then turn the camera back when it needs to be on your face. Easy peasies. All right. We are moving through here. Keith, you've deleted your message. Hopefully you have a question for me or something you would like to say and it wasn't just a typo. What's this? Colton Myers, question. I'm running my first session of Curse of Strahd this weekend. How do you deal with player death? Oh gosh. Look, I've talked about player death before. I've got a video. It's Dark Gifts, character death. I've got a bunch of videos on TPKs, character death options in the Curse of Strahd. There's lots of different ways you can deal with it. Okay? Seriously. You do not have to have a rolling cast of characters coming in and out all the time, every time somebody dies. Use Dark Gifts, they come back with a consequence. Those are the videos you want to go and check out. All right? Okay, moving on. Hopefully that answered your question. Lost on Heros. Lost on Os. I don't know if I got your name right. I do apologize if I botched it. Question. Player hates Irina. Hates Strahd. Doesn't want to talk to them. Thinks NPCs should save themselves and won't help them even if they like them. So what now? Okay, so is this all the players or is this just one player? I mean, that's the question. If it's just one player, well, that's not a big deal because the other players will help drive the adventure. But if you've got all your players are like this, then that's a bit of a problem. Look, my characters who are playing through the Curse of Strahd, the players who are playing through, they actually did something that Irina hated. So Irina and Ismark ran away and they had to try and find them. It took them ages to find them, a really long time. So, and the whole time they're like, what if Strahd finds them and then we lose Irina? What do we do then? So that became the focus. I mean, I think the thing you've got to understand is you can't change the way the players play the characters. So what you do is if you present them with enough stuff that they have to deal with, they start to realize that actually these characters, these NPCs in this world, it's not their fault that things have worked the way they have, particularly when it starts happening to their character. Okay? That would be a suggestion. How do you deal with it now? Start building in consequences and letting them deal with really difficult problems, and don't tone them down, so they can see that other NPCs, it's not their fault. They just live here. Anyway. Right, moving on. Ben's World. Hello, Ben's World. Do you plan on hitting up some 1E stuff for us? Yes, I do. When that happens, I don't know. So, Ben, you're absolutely right. I do plan to hit up some 1E stuff. Like basic D&D. Yep. Like keep on the Borderlands. Yeah. And a few other things. So yeah, I do actually plan to do that. I don't know when, but yes, I will do that. And possibly in conjunction with another YouTuber or a number of YouTubers. So yeah, that's my intention. Anyway, moving on, we are moving through here as quickly as JP. Played for 6 years with Dark Lord, who needs a long service medal for putting up with our group crazy antics. Yeah, well, you know, it's all part and parcel of being a dungeon master. And our group, JP, to be fair, you've had to deal with dungeon mastering for our home group as well. So you know what it's like. It's not like it was just me. All right, collector craving. What do you got here? Question. Grid and minis. I have 4 players. 2 are locked in combat with monsters, and the other 2 are moving around the dungeon. So I'm just trying to track the time correctly. I see. So whoever's just moving around the dungeon, track their time like they are in combat. So they won't get very much done, and just run the combat. Get the combat done. Okay? Now if you want to do it faster and get it out of the way, then the best advice I have is, if you can, use group initiative. I did a video on group initiative. Basically, I put everybody into the initiative order, and if a bunch of players all get to act before the dungeon master, I get them to all just, I say, I say, Cajun, JP, Simon, you will go first. Or actually, it's probably more likely Celine, Chance, and Sky, and Nanok, you guys get to go first, and then I'll take my turn because I'm further down the initiative. And so they just, whoever gets in fast and says, I'm going to do this and roll some dice, and I say, roll the dice, and they just do it. Group initiative works really well. Okay, seriously, it will get things done faster. Those people who are ready to do stuff will tell you what they're going to do. They'll roll the dice. You don't even wait for them. You just move on to the next person. What are you doing? Good. Roll some dice, and then it all just comes nice and quick. Get the combat done. Collector. What do you got here? 2 player in combat have their turn. Then the 2 players out of combat have their turn. It's more so about the timing. I see what you're saying. Duration. Yeah, look, just track everybody in rounds, whether they're exploring or they're in combat. I would just do that. Okay? That's a really difficult situation to deal with, by the way, because seriously, trying to track combat and somebody who's exploring at the same time, difficult. But whoever's exploring can't really do very much. Okay. Acute, what do you got here? Question. How do you make soulless Barovians differentiate them from those who have souls? I feel confused about them. In my opinion, they shouldn't show sadness or get angry, but the book says they in fact do. I did a video on shells. So shells in the Curse of Strahd. There's a video I explain how to do that. Okay, and there's some key points that I go over. Many of those key points are already outlined on page 25 of the Curse of Strahd. So I just expand on those and make it abundantly clear what you want to try and do. Because shells don't feel all emotions. There are some emotions they just can't understand because they are a creation of Strahd's mind. So that's one thing to consider when you're dealing with that section of the book. Okay, page 25 on shells and souls, which you've probably already read. Okay, and then go watch that video that I made, and that will really help you differentiate them from everybody else. Okay, they do not wear bright colors for a good reason, so they do stand out. Right. Cryo and Rigger. Question: how do you run the battle against Strahd? Very carefully. There's no good solution to that. What I did is I brought Strahd and as many of his minions into play as possible. I can assure you, even if you have Strahd and a bunch of undead creatures or allies for Strahd fighting against the party, if they pick their time, they will be so powerful with so much gear on them that they will trounced Strahd. And I know a lot of people I was hoping for a really tough fight. Look, the fact is the players' characters probably already had a number of tough fights when they were simply too weak to deal with Strahd. And my group did, okay? So it's all right if the final battle is a pushover for the players because you've tortured them enough. Okay, you've put them through the ropes enough. It's all right for that last battle to be even a pushover, even if he has many allies with him in that final battle. It's going to be difficult to navigate. Frankly, I know I found it difficult to navigate as well. Right. But yes, Strahd should always have somebody to assist them. Chris, hello, Chris. Chris Sidaqui. I apologise if I messed up the second name. Chris, how's it going, Chris? Do you ever find ways to work in the Raven Queen and or her hold over Strahd? No, I don't. No, I actually used a different deity. And when my party actually experienced or met this deity, I had this deity, and I'm not going to tell you the name of it, okay? She made it clear to them that they were interfering, and defeating Strahd may mean that they would bring Strahd back to life. And so the players were terrified at that point. When you meet a god or a deity of some kind, an entity which is immortal, who isn't Strahd, who comes into this world and says, look, this is how things have been set up, that really changes the way players think. They're like, okay, we want to get out, how do we do this, and how do we not interfere too much? So, but you could include the Raven Queen. You could have the Raven Queen be one of those entities, by all means. But I would imagine that dark entity, or the Raven Queen, would be saying things like, yeah, well, you can do whatever you like to Strahd, but in the end, Strahd's soul is going to be trapped in this world, and you can take whoever you like out of this world if you want, but you're only going to have a small window of opportunity to do that. I mean, you can do those sorts of things if you want to. That's a different level of play, though, and I don't know that every player is going to like that. So yes, hopefully they have a lot of trust in you. Hello, Paul. How's it going? What's this? Sirif. Question: how do you learn the Castle of Strahd or Ravenloft? Okay. Any tips on how to get to the point to know it like the back of your hand, like Strahd is supposed to. Okay, so first off, the actual map of Ravenloft Castle. This is what you're talking about. Okay, it's always been difficult to follow. It's very, very hard to understand. They have tried to break it up for you. It provides you, in the back of the adventure, there's a big pull-out map. I spent about an hour studying this thing. The map that you get in the Curse of Strahd is much better than the original map that we were given for Ravenloft. Okay, that was really difficult to follow. And what you're looking for is the staircases that lead from one level to another, because it's designed to be confusing. It's intended to confuse you and the players, but you need to understand it. So once you've figured out which staircases lead to where, jot down a few notes about how that works. You can stick it into the book, if you like, to help you understand what's going on. Okay, but I do understand what you're talking about. And the elevator trap, which is very, very confusing, I would just ignore that completely. If you if you understand it, great. If you don't, just don't worry about it. But there's no easy way of getting around the fact that the Castle Ravenloft map itself is really confusing. Okay, right. So I feel like that's a discussion I need to have. I suppose I need to give you some shorthand strategies for figuring out how to navigate through the castle as the dungeon master. Not so as the players. The players are going to need to be confused. Right, okay. Byron Lee, how's it going? Question: would you say it is a more dangerous villain, Halaster Blackcloak or Strahd? Mate, I guess the question is, I mean, is Palpatine more dangerous than Darth Vader? They're both really dangerous, okay? They're both quite capable of destroying each other. So I don't think that one is better or more powerful than the other. They're both bad news for their own different reasons. So I wouldn't, I don't think that's a question you can sort of answer. Okay, moving on. JP, what do you got here, JP? Question: Strahd has dark vision sense only. Yeah. My elf Gloomstalker would be invisible to Strahd. However, if he shapeshifts into a bat, does he acquire the blind sight senses? Okay, so first off, I can assure you that beasts, almost no beast has blind sight. Very, very few beasts do, or even darkness, even when they probably should. So it isn't going to matter in the slightest. Your Gloomstalker and its dark vision has got such a ridiculously long range, it won't matter in the slightest. Frankly, it doesn't matter. Yeah. And I know that sounds weird, but you can change those stat blocks. I mean, I think you probably should. There are certain beasts and creatures that probably should have different senses. I don't have the monster manual on me, so I can't sort of talk to the bat specifically. Anyway, moving on. Halaster Blackcloak is a pushover when our Tabaxi rogue steals his spellbook. Well, he wasn't. You guys had to run. I would like to remind you, JP, you guys had to run. And the Tabaxi stole the spellbook and ran away while invisible. Okay? He didn't stick around, and you guys fled as well, because you were dealing with somebody significantly more powerful than the entire party. So, yes, don't go skiting there. Nathan, hi Nathan. I make a battle map on Roll20 and share my screen in Discord. Works really well for us. Yeah, well, you can do that if you know how to use Roll20. I found that the amount of time I had to invest into Roll20 was just not worth it. So I just didn't bother. For me, I'm going to stick to just turning my camera down to my battle map in front of me, because I can draw that out much faster. and spend a lot less time mucking around doing that sort of thing. But if you know how to use Roll20 and you want to use it, then do it. Okay, health and safety hobo. Thanks for the answer, but you're welcome. It's really helpful. Yeah, well, look, I'm hoping people are motivated to stop putting games on hiatus because of the pandemic. Play your Dungeons and Dragons games. Just do it online. I know it doesn't feel the same. I know it doesn't feel the same. But seriously, it could take a very long time before we get past all of this. Okay? So just play what you enjoy and just get on with it. Tommy. Hello, Tommy Chuck. Chanko. Tommy's here. Hello, Tommy. Okay. I've got a super chat. Or is that a sticker? I think somebody gave me a sticker. Thank you for that. That's Sun Chip Slavich. You're welcome. I don't know what's there. You've given me a sticker and you're not giving me a question, so I don't know how else to respond. But thank you for the money. I do appreciate it. Okay, moving on. I've got to answer these questions. Dragon Ball Fun. Tell that guy to make a new character. That likes it. Yeah, no, don't do that. You don't have to tell people how to make their character. It's all right if they don't. Look, a lot of the players found characters or NPCs in the adventure they did not like, and other characters they thought were really cool or felt really sorry for. So and the idea is for them to find individuals that they can ally with, and then other individuals that they will dispose of or have nothing to do with. It depends on them. Mario, hello Mario. I want to know if you had any tips on how Strahd could react if Irina was killed. Why would Irina be killed? I can assure you that Strahd does not want Irina to be killed. And if Irina were to be killed, that he would step in. And he's quite capable of doing that. Okay? So, but if Irina was killed and no longer part and parcel of it, he probably, remember, he's lost Tatiana many times, and she's been reincarnated, or her soul has resided in another body. It's just a waiting game for Strahd. I would this time consider Strahd trying very hard to do things a little bit differently to get her to come to him, rather than try and take her. Because I know this is a question people come up with, is like, why doesn't Strahd just take Irina and transform her into a vampire? Because it's never worked out for him. He always loses out. Because remember, her soul would not be trapped in the vampire body. Her body is now possessed by an evil entity, not Tatiana. And that's what he wants. He wants her soul to be his. So, very dark stuff. Anyway, and he probably would be, I probably would be a little bit wild with that. You know, I mean, Strahd isn't supposed to get angry, but Strahd is quite capable of deciding to just wipe out the population of Barovia and just start over if necessary. So that's something he might decide to do. Okay. Mario, my players failed to protect her and was killed in the winery. Okay, all right. So, yeah. Well, just don't worry about it. He's probably going to blame them for that, but he's also quite capable of stepping in and stopping that sort of thing. So, anyway. Now, some good news for those of you who are here is I feel like the house has got quiet. The door has slammed. It's quite possible that somebody might have gone to the beach. And I did prepare some material for you today, which means I am going to read down till I get to the super sticker from Sunchip Slavach. I think I got your name right. I hope I have. I'm going to read down to him, and then I'm going to present you with the information that I had planned to give you today. So for those of you who are here, you only have a couple more minutes before I will actually give you some useful information other than just answer questions. And then I will come back to the questions. How's that? How's that sound to everybody? Okay. Right, so Fendar's got a question about Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Yes, glancing over some dungeons are too long for me to run. I think it would skip some of the chambers if I DM'd the adventure. Is it any look, Dungeon of the Mad Mage is massive. It will take years to play through. And it requires a very specific type of player who likes exploration. So if you feel you need to cut things out, by all means do so. I don't know. I don't have any advice for you because I have found that Dungeon of the Mad Mage is just too big. It's just too much. And so my players will be playing through other adventures rather than just Dungeon of the Mad Mage. It's really hard to run online because it's so big. So other than that, my wisdom is maybe not run all of Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Maybe pick some stuff and leave some stuff out. The problem is that there are some things on some levels that apply to other levels, which is going to cause, and it's keys. The keys are scattered all over the place. And some of these portals and gates lead to different locations on different levels. So unless you use the whole thing, it's problematic. I don't have any easy solution to that other than maybe just run the first 2 levels and then do something else. If I figure out a better solution, I'll let you know, Fendar. And as you're a patron, you'll know first, more than likely. Nathan, if you read the Ruins of Breeze chapter, it says what Strahd did the last time Tatiana died. Yep. And you don't have to follow those instructions. You could have him do the same thing. But I think the idea is Strahd is trying to do something slightly different this time round. So it's open to you how Strahd is going to work. I've done a video on Strahd and how to roleplay Strahd and give you an idea of how his brain and how he thinks and how he operates. You take it with a grain of salt. If you don't like it, don't use it. If you think that's going to work for you, then maybe that'll help answer your question as well. Okay, no fun allowed. Curse of Strahd has a bunch going for it. It's impossible to know everything that's going on. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Okay, I got to that super chat, the super sticker. So I'm putting my book aside. I'm getting my notes out. I'm grabbing some water. So grab some food and drink, because for those of you who thought I was not presenting any specific material today, I am. Or what am I talking about? Meeting Strahd multiple times in the Curse of Strahd. Let's see if I can get it done. Where's my little images? Let's go back to OBS. So we'll be back to the chat very shortly, but since it's gotten quieter, let's see if we can get this sorted out for you. Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And as it happens, we're going to talk about meeting Strahd multiple times in the Curse of Strahd. Yes, you want to know how to do that? You want to know what you should try and do or how you could go about doing that? I'm going to give you everything that I have currently. Well, kind of. This is a Dungeon Master Guide. That means if you are playing through the Curse of Strahd, this is not the video for you. Full of spoilers. If you're a Dungeon Master, you are in the right place, so stick around because I have more for you. The party could or can or should meet Strahd multiple times without having to engage in combat or battles. And how would you go about doing that? Sometimes it's a bit hard to get your head around that and to come up with ideas. And if you look on the internet, there's really not that much information. And so therefore you are stuck trying to figure out all of that yourself. Here are a few ideas to try out in your game Take them, leave them, change them, do as you wish with them. They are yours to play with. Number 1. Strahd is on the road and he's travelling from one location to another using his black carriage, and he's going to stop and offer the player's characters a ride. Now, I've already talked about that in another video, which is the black carriage, which I made a video specifically on that topic. That's a way they can meet Strahd. Number 2, Strahd sends an invite or message to the party to come to dinner at Castle Ravenloft. I know the players are going to be terrified, and you definitely want to invite them to dinner. Not to be dinner, but to sit down at the table and actually have dinner with Strahd and converse with him. And he's not going to converse with them in his true form. It more than likely will be an illusion of Strahd, because there's always some player that decides, I might be level 1, he's invited me to dinner, let's just attack Strahd right now. So the original Ravenloft adventure actually uses this mechanic. Strahd invites them to a dinner and they have a meal with him. Number 3, Strahd is found playing his pipe organ in the music room of Castle Ravenloft after being summoned, not invited to dinner, but summoned to his castle. Nothing worse. I mean, it's what we see in so many movies, is the pipe organ, the mad individual. So use that. I know you want to, so you might as well have a go. Number 4, Strahd is feeding on a local person who has a soul, because he has to feed on individuals that have souls, because those are the only ones that give him nourishment, and the party just stumbles upon him having a snack. That's probably one of the more weird ways of doing it, and certainly the players may never talk to Strahd. They might just run away thinking they're next. But can you imagine Strahd feeding on somebody, a local popular person who they may have met? It does not need to be Irina. So for those of you who are thinking that's Irina in the picture, no, it's not. It's just a local individual he's decided to feed on, and then having a conversation while he's sucking their blood. Whether it be a man or a woman, it does not matter. So that's another way of introducing Strahd to your party. Number 5, Strahd is openly watching the characters from a hill in the distance. He never actually talks to them, he just looks at them and watches what they're doing. And that'll scare your players big time. But that's another way you can introduce Strahd to the characters and your players and have a little bit of fun with them, because that will certainly spice things up. And this image on a horse is certainly where I would take that idea from. Your players will be wondering what he's up to. He doesn't have to be up to very much of anything, actually. He could just be watching them up close. Number 6, Strahd has taken his brides out shopping and accidentally meets the group while they're shopping. Now, I know some of you are thinking, this feels a little bit like you've taken a whole lot of ideas from real life, and I have very much taken them from real life. But there's nothing more interesting than going shopping to buy stuff somewhere in one of the towns or villages, and Strahd, for whatever reason, with his brides, shows up, and the expression on the shopkeeper as the blood drains out of their face and they go stark white. It's going to be a really good and fun experience. I think that's one way you can do it. Take him shopping. Number 7, Strahd is slaying or killing a potential ally to the characters, and he makes them watch. Yeah, now seriously, get Strahd out in the open. He's picked an individual that the player's characters are trying to ally with, and he doesn't attack the party as such. Instead, he has overwhelming forces and defeats and kills an ally in front of them to make it clear that they cannot find allies to help them. Now that's a way you can encourage Strahd to be seen as a villain. Certainly he's always going to be the villain, but that's certainly going to hammer it down for everybody, I'm sure. This is a bit strange. Number 8. Strahd is watching them, or maybe even talking to the players' characters through a wall painting of himself. Now, literally, there's a painting on the wall of this particular individual, which just happens to be Strahd, and he can actually watch them and look at them. That'll put them off big time. If the painting starts talking to them, oh my gosh. I mean, certainly there's a good chance they'll attack the painting, but they might learn a lot about Strahd's character and another chance to interact with him. This is very inappropriate. Number 9, Strahd attends the funeral of an unfortunate local who has died, or a character, while the party is present during the funeral. I mean, that is the sort of thing that somebody really evil does. Where you show up, you know you've been responsible for the death of somebody, and you go and say, you attend the funeral as if you might actually care for the individuals who died. And of course you don't. And Strahd would not care in the slightest. So there's another way you can introduce Strahd to your players if you wanted to. Let's talk about number 10. 10 is Strahd is visiting Madame Ava just after the party has their fortune told, or before. Now that is going to cause all sorts of complications. The fact that Strahd might visit Madame Ava after they've had their fortune told, that gives them the opportunity to actually have a discussion with him and to realise that Strahd does have a relationship with Madame Ava. And that is going to cause all sorts of questions for players. Can they trust this fortune teller? Is their fortune that has been told actually correct? Or is Madame Ava afraid of Strahd as well? So my players really struggled with the fortune teller Madame Ava as it was, without having Strahd show up. So I'm imagining that this is going to be very, very interesting. The last one, number 11. The characters could just go and visit Strahd in his castle. And it doesn't have to be a battle. He can just show up, knock on the door, and have a conversation. Now, I can assure you that players will want to do this at some point. And it doesn't have to be to show up to attack Strahd. It can be simply to talk to him and try and resolve the issue in an amicable way. Maybe they can change the way that Strahd interacts with the people of Barovia. Of course, that's going to fall on deaf ears, but you can certainly open up that dialogue if you wanted to. Now, I know this all sounds a little odd, but trust me, these are things you take or leave. Some will work for you, some won't. Now, if you found this video helpful, fantastic. I have hundreds of videos for players and dungeon masters, but I have a specific playlist of videos for dungeon masters on how to run the Curse of Strahd, and you're welcome to go and check those out. If you want to support the channel, you can do that through Patreon, my Amazon affiliate links down in the description, my merchandise shelf underneath all of my videos, or just watch my videos. Make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. And we're back. Yep, that's right, we are back. We are back to the Q&A. So I managed to give you, now I knew this was something that people needed, okay? I've been trying to do it for so long. I know that a lot of people would really like to have a bunch of information on how to introduce Strahd to the party and without it being just a battle, okay? And so these 11 ideas, which is really probably more like 10, you can expand on. You absolutely can expand on them and do more. This is not the limit. Okay, just wanted to show my support for your great videos. Hey, thank you for the super sticker. I do appreciate it. And by all means, ask me a question. Where'd it go? Yep. You're welcome. Is it Creo the Rigger? Mario, what do you got here? Question. Right. Periwinkle is our ally in Madame Ava's fortune. How could you integrate him into the story if there is little information on him? Why would you or players want him as an ally instead of someone else? Okay, so look, so when you say that there's hardly any information in there, don't worry about the hashtag, Mario. I spotted it, so that's a good thing. Look, just because there's look, he doesn't come up that much. I've granted that in terms of the story itself. He's not there that much, but there's actually quite a bit on that particular character. So that means you have to build him into the character, into the story more. And he doesn't necessarily have to be an ally. Like, none of these characters in the back here, where I'm trying, here we go. So page 236. And we're talking about Piddlewick the second. So 235 to 236. You get a stat block. You get a fair amount of how the evil toy operates. And it talks about, look, there's a bunch of information. There's so much. I mean, it's frankly, for me, when I looked at this particular character, I was like, should I really make a video on this? Because it's all there for you. You don't have to do any work. It's done for you. So I don't know, Mario, why you think that it's going to be hard to integrate it into your story. And remember, your players decide who is going to be an ally. Just because, so here's one of the things that you want to remember. Madame Ava's fortune telling, they can go back and get a new fortune told. My players went back to Madame Ava many times and got their fortune told multiple times. And so the first reading is the one I stuck with. If you find that the reading isn't going to work for you, but you've already presented it to your players, then make alterations to Piddlewick. Just make alterations so it works. Okay? Anyway, I don't know if that necessarily solves your problem, but hopefully that helped. Podenzi, I think that's your name. Hello. Yes, how is it going? Sway Ray, I think it is. This is perfect, is it? Oh, well, good. I'm glad you showed up at the right time, right day. All right, Jasper Pearls, you got a question. Right, I'm back to drinking water again. Question. Did you perchance buy the written Curse of Strahd special edition? No, I didn't. No, I just have that book. I did not purchase the special edition. I did not get the thing in the box. It's too expensive. I do not have space in my office for it. and I've run the adventure and I don't plan to run it again anytime soon because I want to try something else with my players. Okay, so that's the answer, Jasper. Okay. Pongo Fun. Hey. There are lots of virtual tabletop options. Check out Foundry. Yeah, but you don't have to use a tabletop. You can just use Theatre of the Mind. It can be done. Okay, Mario's got a question. One of my characters died and they chose to roll a new character. Okay, that's fine. The deceased character came back as a vampire spawn. Oh, yeah. If he is cursed, could my player control both characters? Okay, so Mario, here's something that I did in my game. And I'm a tricky dungeon master. So my players, I told them they had to keep playing the same character no matter what happened to that character. And they were quite confused. So my characters got bitten by a vampire spawn and assumed that they would become a vampire spawn as well. And because they started talking that way, I let them believe that. I had them making dice rolls that meant nothing and giving them abilities that actually had no effect in the game, but only I knew that. And I did that for a very long time. And they were absolutely adamant that they were a vampire spawn. So I would suggest to you, why not just let the player who died play the vampire spawn and have the rest of the party try to either turn them back or live with the fact that they are a vampire spawn. It's certainly going to cause a whole lot of complications. Yes, they could control both characters, but I don't know that they need to. You could just let them play the vampire spawn. They don't have to be a vampire spawn forever. Are they a legitimate vampire spawn? Were they actually bitten by a vampire, a full-blooded vampire? Because being bitten by a vampire spawn does not make you a vampire spawn. Something that my players discovered later on and realised the trick that I had played on them. But if they were bitten by a full-blooded vampire, they probably are a vampire spawn. But you can also create a way to have that character lose the vampire spawn property. You know, you can always concoct something around that. But playing two characters is a pain. It really is for any person. Okay, Slika, TMO, I think that's right. Question: how should Strahd appear to the players during the campaign? Have a hard time making him tease the players while preserving the fear that he may show up and kill them. Right, well, first off, you can present Strahd in a bunch of different ways, which I've just discussed, okay? And I can assure you that you don't have to do very much with Strahd for the players to be scared of Strahd, because they're using meta-knowledge. They will know that something's up. They'll be expecting you to turn at any time, but you don't even have to do that, okay? They're doing all the work for you, so don't worry about that, okay? Players are their own worst enemy when it comes to believing stuff, and because you're playing the Curse of Strahd, and because they know they're playing the Curse of Strahd, they will already have some preconceived ideas behind what's going to happen. Okay, movies and games. Hi, how's it going? Acute, what do you got here? Question: some tips for role-playing Strahd as the terrible creature he is for masters with a cute voice. I am of those whom easily foe to roleplay as goblins. I don't know what that means. Okay, so role-playing Strahd, my suggestion to you is don't try to use a fancy voice. I mean, if you really want to try to use your voice, then that's fine. But if you're struggling with using an accent, just don't do it. I can't use my voice that way. It's too weak. My voice just breaks. It falls apart. So I used to be able to do that sort of thing. I can't do that now. So don't worry about it. If all you can do is a goblin voice, don't make a voice up for Strahd. All you have to do is play the character. When you look at actors in movies, they don't mess around with their voice. They just change the way they behave. That's all you need to do. Change the way you speak and behave, not your voice. Okay? That's the cheap trick. The hard thing is actually playing that character. And there's lots of ways you can play Strahd. And I don't want to go into a lot of detail on that because I've done a video on it. How to roleplay Strahd. So it's there. Okay, Victor, hello. Was it Rio Grande Valley? Really? You're from? Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. I feel the temptation to go and watch John Wayne's Rio Grande now. Maybe that'll happen tonight. Although it's Friday, I think I'm supposed to be hanging out with some people watching a movie at home somewhere. Okay, Special Agent Utor. Oh yeah, nice name. I've heard that curse could be used for solo play. Any thoughts on that? Well, it would require a very skilled dungeon master with a very exceptional player and a whole lot of changing to that adventure to play it solo. I'm sure that somebody has probably pulled it off, but whether you can is a different story. I don't think it is a wise idea. Frankly, I think that the Curse of Strahd is hard enough for a group of people. Giving it to a solo player without having to change a significant amount of it, it just sounds like that's the realm. Whoever's talked about doing that is a very good and experienced dungeon master and has probably changed so much it's not funny. For those of you who are wondering, this live stream was supposed to be an hour and I'm still here. I know, I'm still here. Just live with it. I'm on holiday. You're getting an extra. Okay. Dave's. I thought I was late, logging in 15 minutes ago. I might pick and choose things here for my my homebrew. Yeah, well, Dave's. Look, I've been talking for a while, and I'm still here, and I'm still trying to get to the bottom of the chat. I'm trying. A vampire with a hissing goblin voice. But witch-like. Yeah, well, I suppose you could do that if you really wanted to. Okay, so Sift. Question. My 6-player party fought the hags when they were level 8. Oh, okay. While under the influence of cackle fever and got TPK'd. Was it okay for the hags to know how to use their own disease and spam magic missile? Look, my players, there were 7 of them, and they were probably going to defeat the hags, okay? But I had them go to the ethereal plane, and they burnt down the bone grinder. The old bone grinder got burnt down, but the hags were still there. So they could never sleep there because the hags would attack them while they were sleeping. I used magic missile on my players' characters all the time. I just spammed that thing as much as I possibly could. Why? Because I can use it at range and up close. And the old bone grinder is a very tight location to have a battle. It's much easier to have a battle with those hags, which are vicious, outside. But you may not be able to do that. So don't worry about doing that. That's fine. Now, TPKing the entire party, TPKs happen. I've done videos on TPKs as well. There's a reason why they happen, and there's ways of dealing with them. Okay? It's not the end of the world. It shouldn't stop your story. It certainly doesn't need to stop the player's story. There are ways of dealing with that. Okay? So don't feel bad about a lot of the things that are going to happen to the players' characters. It comes down to making sure that you explain to your players that you're on their side and bad things are going to happen. And look, eventually what will happen is the players will get so powerful they will defeat Strahd. My players never defeated those hags, and they're still on the run. Well, not even on the run, they're still around. And my players never go anywhere near the old site of the old bone grinder because those hags are still there. Because they do get attacked while they're sleeping in that location. Okay? I don't know if that necessarily answers your question, but yes, the old bone grinder on those hags they're tough. Matthew Perkins. Hello, Matthew. I'm looking forward to chatting you, and I'm so glad that you've done another Lost Mine of Phandelver video. I'm really glad that you have. My personal favourite is Strahd tries to join the party for a day. Oh, God. I should have guessed Matthew would have a better idea than me. Can you imagine Strahd tagging along with the party for a day? I love that idea. Anyway, I'm glad to see you there, and I guess we'll be chatting very, very shortly. Oh, it looks like I got to the bottom of the chat. I can't believe it. Super happy about that. For those of you who don't know Matthew Perkins, he's not related to Chris Perkins, but he has a YouTube channel, and he has really good videos that are very outside the box, or even outside the circle. I don't even know do they have a boundary, Matthew? I don't think your videos have boundaries. But he's also done a whole bunch of stuff on the Lost Mine of Phandelver. And yeah, he has some good stuff. So go check out his YouTube channel. Right. Acutes. I would probably have to one-shot a player to make him look serious. Yeah. So here's the thing. I always understood with the Curse of Strahd that my players would have their characters die numerous times, and that there would be so much character death taking place. And because I had a fairly good understanding on how to use Dungeons and Dragons 5e and the monsters, that they would have a rough time, even with all of the options, feats, multi-classing going on, okay? But I also understood that eventually, if they stuck with it, they will defeat Strahd. If they don't give up and they keep at it, Strahd has got to buy his time. And what I did with Strahd is they would come to Strahd and they would talk to Strahd about stuff, ask him questions, collect information, and there was never an actual physical battle with him for much of the adventure. And Strahd would give them things to do. He would answer their questions and he would suggest going and dealing with a particular individual. Like, there is a lich, a really evil lich in the Amber Temple. And if you go and defeat him and destroy him, because Strahd wants to get rid of the lich, he's using the players to go and do his dirty work for him. And that's what I would suggest you do. And it'll work out really, really well. Okay? But eventually, he can only bide his time so long before they've either made an alliance with his enemies or defeated his enemies for him. And then they will come back for him. And that is when they will triumph. I mean, and they should triumph over Strahd, in my opinion. You can disagree, but I think that eventually, if you stick with it, the players' characters should defeat Strahd. Anyway, moving on. And I see Matthew's still in the room, which is excellent. I'm getting down there. Acute. Thanks for the inspiration videos. Strahd joined the... What's that? Colon Burial. Colon Burial. Yeah. What an unfortunate situation. Yeah. Look, showing up for somebody else's funeral is really bad taste, but why not do it? Christopher. I think that's Christopher. Question. Should Strahd react when the players kill Baba Yaga? Well, no, because Strahd, he's related, but Strahd doesn't really react that way. It's usually not seen out physically. He may decide, okay, they've destroyed Baba Yaga, I need to up the ante on them. Absolutely. And I sent forces against my players' characters who were sent by Strahd on multiple occasions, and they stopped them. And on many occasions, they were, on the verge of going down, like many of them. But they found ways around that, and when they didn't, Strahd would back off. You put the pressure on, you leave some dead, and you leave a few alive, and you let the story continue. And I found that rinse and repeat quite useful. Resnet 2. Question. Strahd has a great history, backstory, but his personality of pure evil is bland. What have you done to spice him up a bit? Well, what I did is I presented Strahd as being like a normal lord who oversaw a land. He had his own personality, but it was a fake personality. Okay? So his interest in assisting them and giving them advice and engaging in them was just like that of a normal person, which none of the players really expect. They don't believe it. By making Strahd outlandish, which you could do. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But, I mean, really, we've seen those tropes before. So do something that your players don't expect. And that's what I did, is I played him as if he was a normal lord or baron or nobleman. And that's it. That's all I did. And it worked really well. And it confused my players so much. They just didn't know what to do. Everybody's telling them that Strahd is bad, and Strahd always seems to be doing the right thing with them. So, anyway. Byron Lee. I did a copy of Curse of Strahd at one time. I did get a copy of Curse of Strahd at one time, but I soon realised that it was a little too complicated for me. Yes, to run. Yeah, Curse of Strahd is not a beginner Dungeon Master adventure. I've said this many times. Don't go and run the Curse of Strahd as your first adventure. It is too hard to get your head around. I'm sure there are people who can do it, but you're really making life difficult for yourself. So, yeah, go try something else to begin with. Come back when you're ready. At least I could try running the Death House as an adventure on its own. Look, there's nothing stopping you from running the Curse of Strahd at some point, but it does not have to be the first adventure you run. Honestly, there's nothing wrong with the Lost Mine of Phandelver. Dragon of Ice Spire Peakers, it's all right. You may find that the Isle of Dread is more fun. I do feel like that's very sandboxy and not necessarily a good option for a completely new Dungeon Master. I do actually have a video that talks about some of the best adventures that you can use as a beginner Dungeon Master with your beginner players and as a beginner, you know, where you don't have to read a huge, thick, hard-backed book. You've only got to deal with like a page or a couple of pages or 30 pages, and that's much easier to manage. Money Mark, do you love history? Yes, I do. The only time I don't love history is when one of my friends decides to talk about it in the middle of our Dungeons and Dragons adventure, which he has been doing a lot less, which is I'm happy about. Anyway, Pongo Fun. Question. How would you handle the players heading to Kresk? I'm going to lose my voice, sorry. Kresk first instead of Vallaki. Don't worry about it. Just let it happen with Irina. Do it. It's not an issue. It really isn't. They can go wherever they like. Go to Kresk. If they want to take Irina there, that's the place to go. The virtual tabletop comment earlier was for the dude who asked about playing during pandemic. Yeah, no, I understand. Pongo Fun. Yeah, there are many virtual tabletops. I guess for me, I'm thinking, what's the easiest way? The easiest way is Theatre of the Mind or Battle Map on your desk. Point the camera at it, point it back at your face when you're done. A lot of people find it's a lot less time consuming. But no, thank you for sharing with that. Anyway, Matthew, what do you got here? Ha ha, such compliments. Well, you know I would. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the chat we have. It's the 10th, isn't it? So the 10th of, that's New Zealand daylight time. For those of you who are wondering, it's not your time zone, it's my time zone, and Matthew's time zone since he's in Australia. So yeah, so we'll be having a chat about stuff not too far from now. Matthew, you absolutely need to go and make sure that you have a chat with Wally DM. That Discord community, that is where we're going to be setting up the Dungeon Master Roundtable. Anyway, we'll keep going through the questions. And I know you don't know what that is, but seriously, you want to go and join that Discord. I think you're already part of it. You may not be part of it. Are you? Are you not? I can't remember. Mario, question. How do you remind my players to use their items and equipment? Oh gosh. That always pick up potions and useful items in the module, but they never use any of them. They probably forget they have them. Yes, they do. Just remind them. Mario, you can just say, look, have you checked your character sheet to see if there's anything on your character sheet like items or equipment that you might find useful? Dungeon Masters, it's not like there's a written rule that says Dungeon Masters can't give players advice, okay? It's not the Dungeon Master against the players. As they get better at playing the game, they won't need you to remind them, but maybe you remind them now, okay? J. Cole removed his comments. Hopefully you've got something for me. I see. There's the question. Just a misprint, I see. Billy Horton. Question. Should Strahd be a required villain or a villain lurking in the shadows, doing his own thing, waiting for the players to fight him? There's no should. He could. I mean, that's what I would do. But that doesn't mean he should be that way. Look, there's many people who played Strahd completely different to what I've just suggested. And Strahd is openly aggressive and openly attacks them at every opportunity. And there's no rule that says you can't do it that way. You know? It's up to you. It's your game. Okay. I got to the bottom of the chat again. Oh, I'm moving faster. Sefer El-Massi. I think I got it right. Question. Strahd has the White Sisters who don't really die. Is there is there an item that would be able to vanquish them so they stop reviving Strahd? There is the item you create. So yes, there could be, but you have to create it. Okay? Does that answer your question? I know that sounds like a cop-out, but seriously, if you feel that a character cannot be destroyed and will keep reviving Strahd, then remove that aspect of it. It is not like you could run your campaign and have the players defeat Strahd and ultimately he's destroyed forever. Okay? You could do it that way because it's your adventure. Just because I didn't do it that way and other people didn't do it that way, and just because the adventure might suggest in the epilogue that Strahd comes back after a period of time, or that the Dark Lords are involved in doing that, you know, seriously, you can. Let's just go here. Let's go here. Let's look at the that section of the adventure. Get past the appendix. Okay, we're on page 207. There's an epilogue page. Okay, it tells you what happens if Strahd prevails, and it tells you what happens if Strahd dies, and then it tells you what's likely to happen if Sergei or Irina escape, and that happened in my adventure. Trust me, man, that's a lot of fun to have that happen. The aftermath, what happens, and Strahd's return. You can ignore the section that says Strahd's return. You could just say, no, I'm not doing that. I know my players don't like that. That's not happening in my world. That's not how my game is going to be run. I am ignoring that section on page 208 of the Curse of Strahd. Strahd does not return when he is defeated. Or he does. It's up to you. But if he does return, don't tell the players that. Okay? They won't like it. I can assure you, I found that exactly the case for me. Anyway. All right, so Acute, you got another question. Some ideas for the ancestral rocks of the ancient culture and the old bone grinder and Briz. Look, you know, it is something that I have never been able to get my head around. I always kept thinking about Stonehenge, and in the end, I never came up with a solution. But your question is a really good question, and I feel like it's something I should answer. I just don't have an answer for you today. So, provided that when this video gets edited down, this live stream gets edited down for the portion where I gave you some content specifically that I had planned out for today, put down in the description what happens to what's the deal with the ancestral rocks that are sitting outside the old bone grinder and that are by Bress. And then I will know that's a topic that I should talk about, because I think that's a really good topic. I believe that hardly anybody will ever come up with anything like that. I am still working on a video for what happened to the third magic gem seed. Now there are 3 magic gem seeds. Baba Yaga has one. There is one underneath the Golthus tree, and the third one has been lost to time. And that video will come out because I know that's a question I would love to answer, and I know people are looking for it because it could lead to another story. But those stones you're talking about, I think that's a topic you definitely want to leave a comment in when I put the edited version out, so that it reminds me, because I think that's a brilliant question. I just don't know the answer to it yet. J. Cole, question. How would you work with letting a member of the party work for Strahd in secret? If you're going to do something like that, my advice to you is make sure the players know that it's happening. And if the players don't like that idea, don't even include it, because it would fracture. It wouldn't just fracture the party in the game. It will fracture and hurt the relationship between the players and you. They may not trust you completely, but to have somebody in league with you doing this and working against them is highly destructive to a gaming group. Okay? And every time I ever have anybody do anything in the game, I always say, look, if you're going to do this, you need to get permission from the players to have your character do something like this. Because what you're doing is you've just dumped a fireball on top of them. Ask them if they're all right with it. If they're all right being fireballed so you can get everybody else, then do it. If they're all right with you having a secret from the other characters and playing that out, then do that. Otherwise, it's a hard, nasty shock for players to find those sorts of things out. So I don't recommend doing that if you can help it. That doesn't mean you can't do it and it won't work for your group, because every group is different, but it's a dangerous route to take. I have done it before, and trust me, I found it problematic. ResNet 2, haha. Thank you. I'm glad you found that was great advice. Billy Horton, question. Do you think they should change the death house and make integral to the story? No, you can. Look, the death house is optional. You don't have to use the death house. You can exclude the death house and just start at level 3 and play the Curse of Strahd. Okay, that's fine. Just do that. You don't have to integrate it. Byron Lee, the Isle of Dread. I'll try to remember that. Yes, the Isle of Dread is a very old adventure. You can still get it on Drive-Thru RPG. You may even be able to get the conversion for Dungeons & Dragons 5e, but really it doesn't need that much converting. You'll be fine. Mario, question. How can my players use the time of Strahd to their advantage? I feel the info in the time can be learned throughout the adventure before ever finding the book. Yeah, I don't actually have an answer for that, frankly, because I don't quite understand the question. Your question's a bit hard for me to understand, Mario, so I don't have an answer. What I would say is, at some point I will talk about the book. I know what book you're talking about. It's the book that is basically Strahd's diary. It's essentially Strahd's diary, okay? And it's probably, out of all the items, it would be the one item that Strahd would not want them to have. So it is a topic that has to be its own topic. It's a topic that needs its own video, literally. And it would take me too long to explain it. Anyway, Clinton Hess, question. Have you found there is a specific order in which the characters visit areas in Barovia? I want to be able to prioritize what areas to prepare first. Okay. So, Curse of Strahd is a sandbox. What you do is you look at your map, your overall area map, because I know you're going to struggle, right, preparing. There's too much material to sort out, right? So wherever they are, there's usually only 2 or 3 locations they can go to from wherever they finish. So at the end of the session, ask them where they think they're going to be going, and that is the material you prepare. If they don't tell you, or they say they're a bit unsure, then say, for example, if they are at the crossroads, they could go to the old bone grinder. They could go to the castle, or they could go to Vallaki. They could do that. So there's usually only a couple of locations that they can encounter. So that means that it reduces the amount of work you have to do. That would be my advice to you. And then create some shorthands for those locations. Okay? Pardon me, I've got gas. I feel like I need to do a video on sandboxing with the Curse of Strahd, but I think I need to do a flowchart for you. Maybe that'll be something I do in the future. Mario, I've been on New Zealand Okay, I've been in New Zealand on a work holiday visa for more than a year now. Amazing country. Been playing online with friends from Mexico. Currently in Queenstown. Oh my gosh, Queenstown's an expensive place to live, mate. Okay, a nice place though. A nice place. How to bump into you in the streets someday? Well, you might bump into me. Trouble is, sometimes I bump into people and they don't actually know who I am, and I don't really advertise it too much to people if I can help it. Mario, so many natural places in this country where you get inspiration from. Yeah, there are some. Look, you're in a very nice part of the country. I mean, the South Island is amazing. It really is. Okay. Sefer, a question. How have you attempted to play Curse of Strahd on... Oh, have you attempted to play Curse of Strahd on Neverwinter PC? No, I haven't. No, I can't play computer games because it would ruin my life. They have in the past. I won't do it again. Cute. I'm leaving. It's 4 a.m. Oh my gosh, in Spain. Go to bed. You can come back and watch this some other time. Thanks a lot for streaming. Yep, you're welcome. And there'll be look, Curse of Strahd once a month. I'll try to make sure I keep doing the Curse of Strahd once a month. You can come back and ask more questions. It doesn't have to be today. Now a lot of people answered some good questions, had some good questions too. No, I won't play Dungeons & Dragons on a console or PC because I can't play those games without it ruining my life. Jasper, question. Honestly, I'm a little confused on the setting itself. Was Barovia once part of Faerun, or has it always been its own thing? The best answer for that is to go and check out the AJ Pickett's done a little bit of information. He tends to avoid the Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft because people are pretty aggressive about how that all works. Make it whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be any particular way, okay? Barovia is its own entity. If you really want the lore around that, I believe that Jordan, PH is Silent, is making a lot of videos on Ravenloft, and you probably will find what you're looking for there. But I couldn't give you an answer on that, definitely. They change things so much as it is, so I wouldn't worry about it. Clinton, you're welcome. J. Coles, thank you so much. My party have gotten used to the little competitive DMing, but I've been scared to let my players do it. Question part 2. How would you run a group of players from Barovia? I don't understand the question. Frankly, I don't understand the question. I'm confused completely by that. Sorry, J. Cole. Hi, Fred. Nephrilium. Oh, I'm losing my voice. Nephrilium. Fred, I finally caught a live stream. Yes, you did. While I prepare for my last session for Lost Mine of Phandelver. All right. We play tomorrow to wrap it up. I'm a first-time DM, and your videos have been essential to me. Thank you so much. Good. Go check out Matthew Perkins. He's got good stuff too. And go and check out his Loots and Dice. He's got some stuff on the Lost Mine of Phandelver. Is there anybody else that I can think of off the top of my head? Not really right now. There might be, but I can't think of it right now. Okay. You're welcome. I am glad I was able to answer as many questions as I possibly could. Okay, so Dungeon Master Roundtable. What the heck am I talking about? I know a lot of you are wondering, what is... I said it like ages ago, and I've kind of hinted to it for a long time. And you've seen me doing videos with other people, right? You've seen me doing collaborations. I'm going to put Curse of Strahd down for now. If you ask me a question, I will answer it, but I'm putting it down for now. Imagine you get onto YouTube and you have Fred from How to D&D and Wally DM from his channel, and you have, say, maybe Ted from Nerd Immersion, and maybe you have Bob World Builder from, Bob from World Bob, and they're all talking about the same topic. Like, one person is asking a question and everybody goes around and answers that question, okay, giving one answer, and then they ask another question and they go around and answer another question. Would you like that? Because I think you would. I know I would like that. I would like to meet Ted. I've already met Bob. Bob's a great guy. I would certainly like to meet a few other YouTubers that are out there. And the intention is, me and Wally DM want to get as many of the Dungeons and Dragons YouTubers together, not necessarily the big entities, like WebDM and DM's Lair. They probably don't have time for us to do something like this because the kind of commitment is pretty significant. But I think that people would like that sort of thing. And the idea is that you would see this Dungeon Master Roundtable covering a topic for about an hour, and it would be released on different channels. It wouldn't be just on my channel. It might be on Wally DM's channel. Or it might be on Nerd Immersion. It might be on, heck, it might be on Jordan's channel. We never know. I see what Wally can pull off with that. It might be on Dungeon Classes channel. It might be on a very, very small YouTuber's channel that does Dungeons and Dragons that you don't know about. It might be on Matthew Perkins' channel. There has been a lot of discussion about how to combine our forces together all around the Dungeons and Dragons community, and we've already started talking about Dungeon Class and Bob, World Builder, and Matthew Perkins, and Zepron Disney. I don't know him, but I know Wally knows a bit more about that guy. Roll for Initiative. Bill Allen, for those of you who know Bill Allen. Blanco. I've got a good feeling that Caleb might be on board for that. For those of you who know DM Info, I'm really hoping he will be part of this. AJ Pickett, for those of you who know AJ Pickett in New Zealand, who does Monster Lore. Mate, it's the internet, it's always been the problem for him. But the willingness to participate and do something like this is not gone. I can tell you, he'd be interested. D&D Homebrew is a small channel. I've done some stuff with him. But there are other channels that I think would be able to bring something to it that would be interesting, and you would see their content in long form on different channels like each week. And then they would take those videos that are long form content and cut them down into smaller and just have a video on just that question and release that as a separate video, which they can do legally without getting in trouble with YouTube. Which means there is going to be a Dungeon Master roundtable discussion with a lot of the different YouTubers that are out there. The big entities probably won't be interested. That doesn't mean we won't ask, but that's what you're likely to see. Seriously, that's what you're likely to see in the future. So that is the Dungeon Master Roundtable that I wanted to talk about. And this is your information. And I'm not finished. I've got a bit more good information to tell you. I've got some really good news. Here we go. Safir Elmes. Thanks for answering the question. Yes, I did that. Caleb, what do you got here? Just finished a session as my party made it to Vallaki. Yeah, look, I'll tell you what about Vallaki. My party had to deal with that coffin house, and after they dealt with the coffin house, everybody got killed. Just everybody got killed. And the whole of Vallaki got just overrun by vampire spawn, and the whole town just got wiped out. So that's in my game. It doesn't have to happen in your game. But trust me, man, that coffin house is some piece of work. It really is. Or is it maybe just the way I did it? I don't know. Maybe it's one of those. But Vallaki, my players will always remember Vallaki, and so will I. Danny Dark 02, is it? Darko 27. Hello from California. Just started playing D&D and began with Hunt for the Thestral Hydra. Okay. Since it's a short, yeah, it is a video. I did a video on it. Yeah. My friends have been loving it. Yeah, look, I never finished doing videos on that topic. I don't know if I will. I really wanted to do a video on the Lost Princess. Is it the Lost Princess? That warrior princess. I can't remember. And that knight. Those were two characters that I felt like needed to have their own story. And if I ever get around to it and find time, I will do them. So hopefully that adventure went down all right for you. Okay. Rob Stagg 2010. Remember the Beetle and Legend edition by Matthew Lillard. Yeah, yeah. Look, look. People have tried to do a Dungeon Master Roundtable video series on a number of occasions, and it's never worked. But I feel like the format that I have suggested is going to work for YouTubers, because we can take a long form content, you can watch it while you're driving to work, and those people who just want the shortened version will just break it all up into separate videos for that. Stan, how's it going, Stan? Yeah, AJ is the man. AJ is the man. He's very good. He's certainly better at doing this than I am. Just remember the Beetle loves to help. It's the small guy. Yeah, he might, but I feel like Matthew might be just a bit too busy. We'll see. To be fair, really what I want to do is I want to sort of take all the smaller YouTube channels that are dealing with Dungeons and Dragons and sort of surround the big and some of the medium-sized YouTubers, have them sort of surrounded by them and interacting with them. And it's a good excuse for me and Wally to meet a whole lot of people on YouTube who we admire and would like to actually meet and chat with. So although it might be for you guys, it's actually more for us. We're being very selfish about it. I would like to hang out with these guys and gals. There's some gals as well. So we'll see how that goes. Yes. Well, I've been doing collaborations between me and Wally for a long time, but we're going to expand it 4 at a time. I've even toyed with the idea of doing a promo with like 16 heads all at once, but I don't know if that'll work. The YouTube and the video platform might freak out. Anyway, for those of you who have been waiting for me to do reviews on certain books, there's a bunch of books that I have not been able to do a review on. And so I've decided I will review them. And I'll do that during the live stream. And I won't show you the book. I know that's not normally how I do things. Normally I will flip through and talk about the book and show you everything, but maybe that's not going to work with my current situation. But give me a second. I'll just grab the pile of books, shall I? Oh, blimey. They're heavy. All right. Okay. So I've got some books here. So let's start off with the first one on the top of my pile that I have got. I've got this thing. And seriously, man, I have learned so much by reading through this book. I have not finished it. It's this one. Yeah, that one there. Art and Arcana. History. Oh my gosh. Talk about a really cool history. I want to talk about this book. I really do. That is like on top of my list. That would be my favorite one to discuss. Is it practical? No. Is it a paperweight? Will it take up space in your shelf? Probably yes. And yes, it is a huge paperweight. And yes, you probably won't reuse it once you've read through it. But hey, it's still a really cool book. Okay, next. We need to talk about Dungeons and Dragons 5e. And Tasha's Cauldron of Everything is Dungeons and Dragons 5e, in my opinion. So I want to talk to this book. It's a good book for players. It's not so much a good book for Dungeon Masters. But that isn't going to stop me talking about the book. So we're going to do that, okay? I don't know when, but we'll do sometime. This is a very exciting book. Oh my gosh. As a book, I would not have guessed that Mythic Odysseys of Theos, this is a Magic at the Gathering setting. I know it's a rip-off of Greek mythology, but it's a really good book. So I want to talk about that book. Seriously. This would be my next book to use if I run another campaign. This is the book, for sure. All right. Next. The Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. Yes, I know, Critical Role. Not everybody likes Critical Role. Some people love Critical Role. But this is a huge book. It's got so much information in here. and it's got four adventures, and it's a really good book, and it's got an index. Very rarely do you see Wizards of the Coast put an index in a book, but this is written and put together very much. It's got the stamp of Matt Mercer, and Matt Mercer knows the value of an index, and he's got an index in here, and that's not the only really good idea in here. So I want to definitely talk about this book, and we'll do it in a live stream. Why not? I'll do it. People keep asking me about this Rime of the Frost Maiden. Is it any good? Should I use it? What do you think of it? And frankly, this adventure frightens me. Not because of its content and topic, but because of how it's built. And I can't say any more than that right now, but I will talk about this book. I will do it. I will put some notes together, we'll live stream it, and I'll talk about it. I know some of you love Eberron. I've got the book, The Rise of Rise from the Last War. Seriously, it's something my players really like the idea of. For me, it's not so much something I'm that interested in, but I can see some value in some of it. But we'll talk about this one. I've got it. I will talk about it. It's on the list. Yes, I've got Baldur's Gate, Descent into Avernus. Why it's called Baldur's Gate, I have no idea. There are problems with this adventure. But there are stuff you could strip out and use and just go Road Warrior, Mad Max, frankly. This is an adventure I will never run, I can assure you. But I will talk about this book. It's on the list, I can assure you. It's on the list. I'll live stream it. It'll happen. My least favourite book. I despise the Dungeon Master's Guide for Dungeons & Dragons 5e. It is full of magic items to ensure that players will buy the book and not just Dungeon Masters. As a result, almost every single Dungeon Master guide that's ever been printed is better than this one. Yeah, I know some people are like, no, he's wrong. There's good stuff in here, but there's not enough good stuff in here. There's too much pandering to trying to get the players to buy the book as well. And magic items could have gone into one book. I can assure you, a book just full of magic items that had just nothing but magic items will be purchased by a dungeon master and players. So why they didn't do that? Stupid idea. Why did they put it in here? They've ruined this book for me. But I will talk about it and we'll live stream it. Now that I've done that, and you've seen what I am planning to do, since I have never going to have the time to be able to do it in the format that I used to, we're going to cover all those books. And I'm going to say right now, this is your opportunity in your chat. Type in what you want first. Tell me what you would like. If you do that quickly enough before I leave, then I will know. Yes, I will probably put a survey, a poll on the channel and ask people what they would like me to cover first. And I'll do that. Absolutely. So, now that I've done that, now that I've explained all of that, now that I've lost my voice and I am so desperate to use the toilet, I'm going to say to you, thank you for hanging out with me. It's been a long haul. We have covered so much. There has been so much to say. Stan has already put down Tasha's. All right, so I hope you guys are typing quickly. I could do the jiggle and give you time, but ultimately in the end, if you don't say anything here in the live stream about what you would like me to cover in a live stream in terms of those books, I'll put up a poll anyway. Okay. So now that we've covered all of that, where are we? Yeah, let's go back to here. Do I want to go back to here or do I want to go back to here? No, because we were talking about the Curse of Strahd. So that is the live stream for the Curse of Strahd for this month. We will be back next month to talk about the Curse of Strahd, as we should. And of course, we will be back once a month to talk about The Lost Mine of Phandelver and Dragon of Ice by Peak. Maybe as a joint video, maybe as alternating, something like that. It'll happen, don't worry. But that leaves me 2 weeks in every month to talk about those books. And we're going to get through them because I'm so tired of not getting them done. The pile just gets longer and longer or bigger and bigger, so it needs to happen. So wherever you are in the world, thank you for showing up, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, the night, or the early morning. Please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. And hey, be nice to your neighbours too. Be nice to your neighbours. Forgot about that. Be nice to your neighbours. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.